is everybody? Give you guys a second. What's good, my loves? Another Friday. I didn't check the breaking news before I came on. I've had a busy morning already. Got a lot going on. But we're gonna get into it. I got some messages, guys. One of the first things I want to say is the Lion's Gate is open. Okay? The Lion's Gate is open. There's only a certain amount of slots. I saw a couple of you have booked already. You know, if you want to join this year, you know, now is the time. I'm probably going to close it around August 5th. Okay? I feel like this year is a foundation. Okay? So I feel like, you know, I think it might have been last year or the year before we had to walk through the portal by ourselves. Now we're laying the columns. We're laying the columns, okay? And remember that next year is when, you know, Pluto is fully going to station in Aquarius. So all like brand new shit, you know, we'll be wrapping up Uranus's transit in Taurus in 2026. Okay, I know that shit sounds far, but you're laying the foundation right now, okay? I'm having an allergy attack, a mild one. I took some medicine already, but just to, you know, prepare you guys. Okay, so there's that. So the Lion's Gate is up. What else did I want to say? I got some messages. There's a possibility that I may release this depending how deep we go. Okay, if we go too deep, you know, Spirit will keep it private. But there's some downloads that came in. It was very late. It was like 3:40 something in the morning. I think it was 3:41, which would be 8. There were some downloads that came in. And I feel like they don't just apply to us. So I feel like Spirit's either going to have me release this. What's good, Copenhagen? Or Spirit's going to have me rediscuss some of these topics. So I want you guys to be aware of that, okay? Sometimes if the messages are big, Spirit's not going to want them just for us, okay? So I'm going to be previewing to make sure that all of this messaging is for the general public. If not, maybe I'll take out segments or I will discuss this, okay? All right, so let me, for a moment, I'm not going to see the chat because I need to pull up the downloads. All righty. So first off, you know, before I even get into the downloads, a couple things happened. We all know about the indictments. I feel like the public has fatigue. Okay, also, there's going to be more fatigue. I feel like, and it's something to do with the number 10. Let me put this in because I was just about to forget that shit. Okay. Something about the number 10. I almost lost. Now I'm having trouble remembering why they just brought up 10 right now. Because that was part of the download for the thing that we need to talk about. Give me a second. What was I just talking about before I pulled up the messages, guys? Because the messages are really coming in fast today. I don't know, maybe Spirit will give it back or you guys will write it in the chat and maybe it'll trigger me. But I'm going to jump in. Oh, I was talking about the fatigue. The fatigue and I feel like by August 10th, yes, okay. By August 10th, the Georgia indictments will be down, or not only will they be down, that could be a specific date where there's like, maybe that's the Friday after. So, like, let's say if it happened earlier in that week, like, let's say it happened August 8th or whatever, like, that weekend following could be a little crazy. Okay? What's good, Rose? So, I don't know what's with the date. I'm just telling you, okay? Seeing something about August 10th, okay? All right, so let's get into let's get into what was coming through. And I know, we're probably grazing over a lot that happened during the week. Usually when I come on before we start pulling the general energy, we start with some of the shit that has transpired. But I had a lot of downloads and I just gonna go straight in because we have a lot to discuss. Okay? So I'm sure that some of you saw the congressional hearing. Okay, the congressional hearing about, other life forms, whether you want to call them aliens, whatever the hell, we have been talking about this subject in this country for sure since Roswell, which I believe was in 1947 or the end of the 40s, was good to Miller. So, this isn't new conversation, but up until this point, most of the public would consider it to be um, controversial or conspiracy theories, whatever. Even though there have been long-standing papers published on NASA's website that it already was kind of getting at that, and in the last 18 months there have been drips and drabs of information coming out, and honestly I don't follow all of that shit. Like, I couldn't tell you that whistleblower's name or the other dude that was, in that other press conference that came out a couple months ago. I will say this. This shit is on purpose that they're telling us now. For those of you on TikTok, I can't go 5 videos without a video that comes up basically saying, like, did you hear about the alien thing? Are you wondering why nobody gives a fuck? Is it because our bills are so high? And they say the rant, right? And every point that they have is fucking real. Every point that they have is real. However, you don't think that there's a possibility that this is a campaign for desensitization towards the subject? Because if there's a massive information spill that is about to hit, or that's something that cannot be unseen, and they knew that that was going to occur, right? We have seen decades of movies of how it would cause like civil unrest, right? So what would be the best way? Well, to put out programming, okay, about shows, or to prepare to show different lights, okay, to have creators making content, dissuading panic, and I'm not saying we should be in panic, but what the fuck I am saying is discernment is important, and we're going to get into it. But remember that nothing happens without prior knowledge. Discernment, gang. All right, so I woke up in the middle of the night. I woke up in the middle of the night, and what was strange was my partner, who is not really spiritual, just happened to be up at that second and was about to come to bed. And I started explaining the download as the transmission was coming in. It was so strange because he was listening intently. Right? Normally, those are subjects that don't necessarily spark interest. Right? But the reason why for this particular person is not a thing of interest is because this person heavily sees the world through science. Through science. And some of the things that came through had to do with science. And so therefore that was the thing that made logical sense. Okay, so we're going to get into it. The first download was, like I said, the alien conversation and the reaction, and whether or not we are being programmed or desensitized to have a particular reaction or response to the incoming information. I feel like no one's talking about that. Everybody's talking about whether it's important or not, whether we give a fuck, whether we're already in trauma, whether we're still trying to come out of the trauma of the COVID and all these existential situations that we're having around us. It's as if the messages are saying we don't have the capacity to process this and what's happening to us. And that is a fucking lie. So why are they pushing that message? That's one. Okay, secondarily, the second message that came through is we are not advanced, we are behind. We are not advanced, we are behind. So let's get into that. So when I had that channeling, what they were explaining is that language was created because of a loss of knowledge, not because we were gaining knowledge. Language was created because of a loss of knowledge, not because we were gaining knowledge. So history would have you believe that as time progressed, that we were evolved and we learned new things about science and that we came to new technologies. That is not the case. Spirit said this is a man-made construct. Okay? It's a man-made construct. I'm going to put the chat back on because even seeing the rest of the messages is making me go into other channelings. All right. The patriarchy. I'm going to tie it in for you guys and then you can apply it. And I'm sure when you later think about it, you guys are probably going to have even more. You might even hit me up like, yo, I was just thinking about this, right? But let's get into it. Backtracking a second with the alien thing. There are cultures around the globe that, whether they were hieroglyphs or in their allegories or stories, write about encounters with other life forms. This isn't new. The Egyptians, for one, the Mayans, the Hindus, and I'm sure there's other shit that I don't even fucking know about. What's good, Cynthia? Okay? So let's just start there. Some of these stories are benevolent and some of them are malefic. So what is this fucking saying? This campaign for us not to concern ourselves concerns me. Because we don't have enough knowledge, even if they're saying that they have the knowledge. Since when do we trust that? And how in the past has that not worked for us? Okay, so I'm not saying a one particular way, like they're bad or they're good. I'm saying that there's more than one, because the history books tell us so. And that how do you tell a whole global community it's nothing to concern ourselves with when history says it depends on who is coming, right? You follow what I'm saying? If you had a distant relative that you had not met and you were having correspondence with this relative and they said, I can't come, but your other cousin is coming. Okay? You never met this cousin. Okay? They're coming with a couple of them. You don't know which ones are good and which ones are bad. You feel me? This is what I'm trying to say. All right? So let's start with that fucking premise. We don't know what, if we're way behind, we're way behind. Remember, Spirit's message was we are not ahead, like we're behind. What was it again? We are not advanced, we're behind, right? So back to that. The reason why we don't have more documentation and more information about these situations is because the system of patriarchy has gone around globally battling nation against nation, people against people. And every time a conqueror happens, they would take over a place and destroy their knowledge or assimilate it into their own so that they could take credit. Because of this, the information that we have is corrupted. Let's start there. I'm going to go back to the language thing in a minute. So, not only was the information corrupted, but so was the technology. Okay, so this is why we don't understand what the pyramids do. We do, but we don't. They are definitely energy sources, like energy towers, kind of like our phone towers, okay? But we don't really, or at least they're not sharing with the general public how they're to be used. I believe they know. Okay, so because of that, we have lost technology. We have lost the ability to have free power, Spirit is saying. The ability to harness solar power in a way that we ourselves right now don't understand. And many other forms, And so because of the destruction of these systems over thousands and thousands, if not millions of years, and also some malefic and benevolent energies interfering with the natural progression for resources and extraction has tinkered with like the outcome, basically, Spirit is saying. Okay, so when I say that we're not advanced, we're trying to regain the knowledge to rebuild or rediscover technology that we already had. So when I say that language was created basically so we could communicate, because we had already lost gifts. We already had lost gifts. What gifts did we lose? Telepathic. We didn't used to talk. We didn't used to talk. There was not a need to do that. Okay? We were more sentient, Spirit is saying. We were more sentient. But this frequency of like war and wanting to take ownership caused some type of lowering of the vibration, and the knowledge was not being taught. The knowledge was not being taught. Okay, and they have made us purposefully reliant so that we would not have a need to want to create these things or relearn these gifts, because we think that these things are assisting us, but in reality they are preventing us from our full capability. Are you guys following what I'm saying? We think, like, especially if you're in a developed country, right? If you're in a developed country, you're used to so many what you consider conveniences that when you look at people in third world countries, you're like, oh my God, I could never pour them, right? But they're closer to the earth than we are. They're more self-reliant than we are. There's an imbalance, and it's purposefully done so that that way you don't return. And I don't know why Spirit saying homeostasis. What the fuck does that mean, guys? Can somebody look it up? Homeostasis. But it's so that we don't return, or like something about healing the way we're supposed to be. Something about if we don't go in, so that we don't go into homeostasis. Is that balance? Is that what it means? It feels like a healing chamber, but I could be wrong. Okay, so yes, we would come into the natural balance, the natural order of humanity, right? You wouldn't pay for water, right? Because you would know how to get water from the earth. You would have remembered that, right? You would remember the natural encoding. You would have been taught things about celestial movements. We wouldn't be, in our 30s and 40s and 50s and trying to break down our fucking birth charts and understanding. These would have been things that we would have been, that would have been school. Like, you understand? A lot of the things that we're doing now as adults, yes, a lot of the things, like, we would have already like communicating in particular ways. But as we would have gotten to certain ages, the people that are, whether they were parents or whatever, right, they would have been training us according to our ashe or our gifts, and they would begin transmitting knowledge like, hey, you're supposed to be an astrologer, so you need to know, right? I'm trying to explain to you what Spirit was saying. Living organisms need homeostasis, internal environment, in order to survive. Okay, right. So for us to stay off kilter gives control, right? So I think that's what Spirit is saying with that. Let me go to the next thing, because it all kind of like fucking goes together, right? So the reason why they have us trying to be reliant, yet tricking us into believing that it's making our life easier, is because there's a purposeful dumbing down. There's a purposeful dumbing down. If you're going to take a whole group of sentient beings and enslave them, because the reality is, apart from obvious structures of enslavement, whether they're based on race or not, apart from that, we have bigger enslavements, okay? Because racism in itself is a tool for enslavement by dividing populations into believing that there's a winner and a loser, so that way you can entrap both and make them target each other, right? So you see, excuse me, you see how one system is within the other system. And I'm not saying that I'm downplaying racism, because it is catastrophic in our overall existence as people and has been here for hundreds, if not thousands of years, maybe longer. But I'm saying that the two structures are interdependent. So it's purposeful to keep us in a state of not remembering. I remember the way. Okay? Now the third download was herbs and zaddy. Herbs and zaddy. Okay, why herbs and zaddy? Because Spirit said that all the medications that we're using now are built off of extracts from the very fucking herbs that grow out of the ground. And you'll be surprised how many is growing in your local community. Depending on your region, there's some herbs that are more plentiful and other herbs that are not. And all of these herbs have multiple purposes. The reason why they don't want us to remember that knowledge is because multiple structures, or Spirit, can I have the word? Industries would collapse. Okay? Multiple industries would collapse. Medicine, insurance, right? Insurance would collapse because, like your medical insurance hinges on people getting sick, right? In addition to that, lifespans would change, right? Illnesses would cure. In the Bible, we lived much longer. If you take that as, because we already talked about how countries would battle against, or peoples would battle against each other, and they would take in information, so, and call it their own, right? So a lot of the major books, whether it's the Quran or the Bible, these are all books that have swallowed up other technology, averted some. I'm just giving you what Spirit gave me. Right? So think of a funnel, and it's like they were putting like a sifter in the funnel, so that as they poured the information down, they would sift out what they didn't want, what they felt was not helpful to their agenda. And this has been done like hundreds of times of whoever was in charge. Okay? So the suppression of the herbs is a twofold. The suppression of the herbs is a twofold. Newsflash, we didn't really used to eat. I know that sounds crazy. Excuse me. We didn't used to eat, okay, in the way that we eat now. I'm not saying that we never consume things, but we're electromagnetic and we lived off of more minerals, okay? Minerals. So gathering, yes, you know, the hunting gathering, like, you know, maybe picking berries, or but it was more about the herbs, the teas, the replenishing, like electrolytes, okay? There were longer fast periods. It was very different than how we feel we need to consume. And the reason why is because they have blocked so many things that for us to remember, we're electromagnetic, for us to have that level of recharge that we need to consume fuel at such a higher rate, hence needing to eat 2 and 3 times a day. And that, spirits got me all over it. And that also has to do with the things that they put in us that has bacterias and parasites thriving within us that cause us to want to eat particular things that the parasites need to survive. Okay, so it's all fucking in there together. And the zaddy is because for them to maintain control, they have to keep us dependent. Hence why there's a supermarket every mile. Hence why there's an alcohol. You know, people just think like, oh, whether it's a good hood or not. Okay? Because a lot of the stuff, and you know, I know that the US has one of the worst reputations when it comes to, you know, the food supply. But Spirit was like, this is a global campaign, so don't get it fucked up. Okay, it's a global campaign. Okay? Also, the food is running out. Real talk. Okay? The food is running out. So, and it's going to get worse because you had that Ukraine bombing, you know, where they fucked up all the grain. They destroyed all the grain. And all the fertilizer, that shit that he was doing last year, he did it again, but now, you know, stronger, so it's gonna cause more problems come this fucking winter. That's what they're not talking about. Okay, so this is like to make people and keep people needing, right? When if people really fucking understood, okay, yeah, there would be panic. I understand. Right? But they would be also planting wherever they fucking could, even in their bathrooms, right? We would be planting, right? But people don't know because they're like, oh, you know, well, supermarket's always going to be there. Is it? Is it? You know, I'm not trying to be like a fear mongerer, right? I'm just keeping a buck, right? If we all know that the system is like really off right now, okay? I mean the Spirit, give me the word. The jet stream is collapsing. I'm not bullshitting. Look it up. The jet stream is collapsing. Once that happens, that changes food supply, that changes temperature, that changes every fucking thing. Right? If we are all here, you know, we've talked about the 100 monkey theory and how we all get to a certain point, right? Hold on. Yes, I'm trying to get you prepared, right? So if we all have talked about we've all talked about the 100 monkey theory, and we all can fucking feel that like this patriarchy is shot to shit and it really can't sustain much longer. What makes you think that the services that we're accustomed to will be there? Can we live in reality? I'm not saying that it would be permanent because we are, very ingenuitive, right? And intuitive, right? So we figure out ways, right? But that might take a little while. That might take a couple months. That might I'm just trying to explain. Okay? I'm just trying to explain. Let me look back at this list. Right? And if Zaddy, we're gonna call him Zaddy from now on. If Zaddy is aware, that this would only fasten or quicken the end game, right? Because I'm gonna get back to the other thing. They don't want us to wake up, okay? Because it's not only about keeping the system in thing, but it's also about making it come faster, right? Okay. Oh, thank you, Copenhagen. So there's a reason why they try to keep the pineal gland, because I wrote here the pineal gland and the loss of gifts. There's a reason why they don't want us knowing about herbs. There's a reason why they don't want us planting food. There's a reason why they don't want us to know how to heal ourselves. There's a reason why we're given so much convenience, so they can charge us for it, make us work for it. Do you see? So then for you, it's like, well, I need to work, because if I work, then that's how I pay for my cable or my Wi-Fi. That's how I pay for my rent. That's how I pay for my food. That's how I pay for my car payment. So there's a system that if you believe that you need this, then you will become a cog in that system. Okay? And part of that whole thing that I was having about us not being advanced. Look, I haven't even thrown a card. About us not being advanced, but being behind. There's a purpose to this shit. They don't want you to remember. And if we're hitting a tipping point, why do you think so many people came online, like from 2019 till now? Because biologically and within our DNA, and because we are sentient beings, we are being told by the all, wake up. You need to prepare. Right? Wake up, you need to prepare. And some of us have been doing that. I have so much to tell you guys. I don't think we're going to do cards today because that's how much stuff. Now, this whole part of this whole download, I'm going to teach y'all something today. Part of this whole download that I had gotten was I was trying to explain to my partner that there was a way that you could tell when a frequency shift has happened. Okay? And that how I was trying to explain to him what it was like to be me. Because he doesn't understand, right? So I said to him, I said, do you guys remember the screwy looking light bulbs that they've kind of like taken off the market because they said they're unhealthy? Do you guys know what I'm talking about? They look like a twirly thing. They looked fucking weird and ugly. Y'all know what I'm talking about? They were saying that they were taking off those light bulbs because there was something in them that was making people sick, asthma, and many other things. They were unhealthy to have in the home. And what they noticed was that there was an elevated frequency that was associated with those light bulbs. Maybe the average person, they were non-LED. You know how the old school light bulbs, they're still shaped like they are now. I'm gonna kind of draw them for you. Touch paper, this is better. Old school light bulb was like this with metal at the base. The light bulbs I'm talking about bear with me, guys. It's rough, okay? Look more like a twirly thing. You following me? You know what I'm talking about? Now, the new light bulbs are shaped like the old ones, but now they have a plastic covering at the base. You still have them. Get rid of those. Get rid of these fucking light bulbs. Anyway, when I moved here to my mother's house, since my mother has a very big house, but she was living here alone, there was still a lot of those light bulbs. There's still a couple in the house, right? And I was telling my man, I was like, yo, I want you to change out the light bulbs in the bathroom, in our bathroom. He said, why? And I said to him, I can hear the frequency coming off the light bulb. So he said, what are you saying? And I said to him, I said, every time I walk in the bathroom, the frequency changes. And I know that bathrooms can be portals. I know all that, okay? But it's not that. I know how to open and close those type of portals, this, that, and the other. This is not that, right? So I said to him, this is how we got into the conversation about him, teaching him. I said, everybody used to know how to do this. That's when I explained to him, Spirit started talking. We didn't need language. We didn't even need fucking food the way that we think we need food. Okay, that all came later from the enslavement. Okay, so when you guys hear a ringing, this is the part I'm teaching you. And we could do a separate one because, like I said, this one might go public. And we can do a secondary one to my Patreoners where we can get deeper into the frequency work. I want you to pay mind. If it's high pitched, if it's low pitched, if it's in particular places. If you start paying attention to that, the pitches, there's messages there. Okay? Once you start really listening to the pitches, you will become more in tune. This has to do with your chakras. A lot of times when we go into spaces, we don't realize, oh, I don't like this energy. It feels dense. It feels, but it also sounds differently. And some of us are clairaudient, amongst other things. But Spirit said to tell y'all, you all have it. You must practice and cultivate it. So, yes, some of us are born with it more clearly. And that was what I was explaining to my partner. That I would not, I didn't notice that everybody couldn't do this until it was actually pointed out to me. Right? And it was only pointed out to me by seeing somebody else couldn't. Right? So the pineal gland, and you know, for a long time, it got quiet, like a year and a half. And you guys probably remember when I said to y'all, start holding or practicing or seeing if you can magnetize a coin. How big of a coin can you magnetize and hold? Why? Because your pineal gland is magnetic. There was some conversation about this like a year and a half, 2 years ago, and it died out. And I'm seeing now them starting to talk about it again as if it's new information. The reason why it's new information is because more people came online with the Schumann resonance. So a lot of the things that were being discussed a year and a half ago that we've been talking about is now starting to seep out for the second and third waves. Okay, let me read this comment before I continue. Hold on, guys, because you know my vision be crazy. Can we change how we experience frequency? For example, my heart starts raising in a special way when I am about to meet negative energy. I am tired of the wild reaction. Okay. And I said this to Milla, and you know, in a different instance. But this is a symptomatic of the same situation. You're each going to experience this in a different form or fashion, and on different levels of intensity, depending on your individual, you know, ascension and where you are. Okay. Remember, guys, last week I had that toothache, and then I had migraines all through the week. Toothaches, I put it together. It has also to do with how you're communicating and how other people are communicating about you. You get a toothache, pay attention to what's happening around you. Okay, so remember, I was experiencing that, right? Yesterday, I realized that it wasn't a regular like headache. It felt like a band of pressure, and I was like, oh shit, it's ascension symptoms. So was the tooth. I had already figured out that the tooth was like right before that. It was like my body telling me that there was stuff going on, right? So that in conjunction with that, last night I laid in bed and I was like, okay, you know, I start clearing my energy. You know, I took something for the headache. This morning when I woke up, I had the allergies, right? But it was pouring clear out of my face, and it was pouring clear out of my face, and it was clear. Not trying to be disgusting, but what I'm trying to say to you, was no infection. There was no cloudiness. There was nothing, right? It was that it was being flushed, right? So in my case, I flushed it, right? Copenhagen, in your case, you're saying that when you encounter this energy, your bodies, your chakra, the chakras are now becoming, and you know, each of you is going to have one more stronger than other areas. If you guys are interested, you should look up human design and start researching a little bit. I am learning about that myself, so maybe we can, you know, do that together, right? But you guys are each are going to have certain chakra points that are more in charge of your path at specific times. Okay, so if you're following what I'm saying, right? So let's say Copenhagen for you, it could be your solar plexus that is warning you, like that's because that's where the fight and flight, right? So you could be feeling that, or in your sacral, because both of those deal with the fight or flight, right? Because it lives in your sacral, but your solar plexus is the one that responds to that reaction, right? So you have both of these affected by that. So these could be your two sensitive chakras where you really pick up a lot of information, right? So now if you're being gifted and elevated in that chakra, stay with me now. And if that is a leading chakra that ends up having to that is being upgraded right now, right? It's gonna feel stronger, right? So back to what I was saying about the frequency. I can fucking hear light bulbs loud as hell right now. A fucking light bulb. Okay? I fucking hear everything right now. And that's not no bullshit, because like when I was in my 20s and I lived in Harlem, and I think I've told you this story before. I've always had elevated hearing, not just in the spiritual, but in the 3D. And when I lived in Harlem, that apartment was terrible. It had roaches and all kind of shit. And I remember being in bed with my husband at the time, and the lights were off, but we hadn't fallen asleep yet. And I said to him, get up and turn the fucking light on. And he was like, why? I said, because there's a roach. He was like, what do you mean there's a roach? I said, there's a roach on the wall. I can fucking hear him rubbing his antennas together. And he fucking laughed. And I was like, I'm not playing. So he got up. And when he turned the light on, the roach was right where I said. So I always had that elevated thing. Now it's even higher. Right? Okay? So another example of that, which was what I was saying to Tamila, if you are a person who's highly sensitive to other people's energies and it makes you ill, you could be feeling extra ill right now, or extra drained, or extra anxiety, because the energy that you are feeling, or the anxiety that you are feeling, is not really yours, because you may not have anything major going on in your personal life, but you can feel the energy of everyone else, okay? And like, Tamala, we've talked about it, that Empress frequency, right? So people go to dump to heal, right? So you probably are feeling the incoming of like, oh, they're about to dump some toxic shit. So all of us, and I said this and I say it again, no matter where you are in your spiritual journey, you're being upgraded in some form or fashion. And this may feel very different in your fucking body, okay? Now, for me, I hear the insects at night and at higher pitch than before. My husband thinks I have a hearing issue. Yeah, you do not have a hearing issue. Okay, so this is what I'm trying to say to you guys. Recognize what area feels heightened. Recognize what area feels heightened. Even if it feels heightened like in a negative way, it's also because during your ascension, when you first started, and you would feel terrible because you were in a shadow work or a purge period, but it's because you're getting used to a new frequency. So that's basically what's happening, guys. Okay, so now, and that's why I don't think we're going to get to cards today, because there's so many messages. Okay, so let's talk about something else related to what is to the politics arena for a brief minute. I know y'all saw Mitch McConnell. I know you saw that shit. Okay? I also know you guys probably did see Dianne Feinstein do the same shit like the day after, where they had to tell her what to say for her vote. No, Mitch McConnell is the leader of the Republican leader of the Senate. He's the one who basically is responsible for like 70% of all the political upheaval that has happened here in the States, because he was trying to get particular power in place. Yes. So that way the Republicans and companies and billionaires could have their way, okay? And which he succeeded in that. Okay, so he was frozen on camera. Okay, they're talking about it was a stroke. I don't know if I necessarily agree with, yeah, he looks like the turkey, right? Everybody calls him the turtle, right? I don't know if I necessarily believe that it was a stroke, because, you know, and there's many different types of strokes, so I'm not a medical professional, but I will say that usually when a stroke victim, you know, they have more than just the staring, you know, they might have a side of their face that starts drooping, they may lose bodily function or start vomiting, right? At least that was, you know, my mother experienced it in that version. The speech, you know, words don't make sense, things like that. But there are different kinds. He could have had a mini stroke. I'm not here to diagnose what the fuck happened to him. Okay, let me start with that. Okay, but Dianne Feinstein, okay, who's also equally ancient, and she's a Democrat, and I absolutely love Dianne Feinstein. She's done, you know, good things, but can we all say that they're too fucking old? And taking this conversation into consideration, and you guys know we had that what was the reading, the 100 Monkey, and there was another one, the Lost Ones. Fucking watch the Lost Ones and tell me that you don't think that these motherfuckers were glitching. Whether it's AI, whether it has something to do with this alien thing. Because let's go back to the fucking alien thing. Look at it this way. Prove they're power hungry, so they do not want to let go. Right. Okay, so let's go back to the what did I just say? To the alien thing. That whistleblower, go listen to what the fuck he really said. Because, you know, you see little clips and nobody wants to take the time out because, like I said, everybody's desensitized. Right? He said, they've been known that there's aliens. He said, they've been had their technology that's at least 50,000 years ahead. And not only are they fully aware of that, but they're also fully aware of interdimensional beings. What does that mean for the layperson, for us? That could be, you know, and it could be us coming through from another timeline, right? This could be time travel. This could be so many fucking things. They said that shit, yo. They said that shit. Okay, what else did he say? He was asked, has any humans been injured by these encounters? He said yes. The guy said to him, was it that they were injured during the encounters, or were they injured by government entities basically inferring were they hurt because they were trying to cover up the thing? The guy said both. Okay? Now, why am I tying that in to the Mitch McConnell and the Dianne Feinstein? Could there be that a major thing is about to happen and that something about this system which we don't understand is being held up by certain... I said to you that throughout history, I'm trying to quantify it in a way because this might have to go public, right? Y'all have to use your discernment. Could it be that there are different factions that are here and some that are already aligned with our government that are upholding particular systems, and then there's others? Because we have had messages before about humanity being the plague that is causing damage to the earth, which was another download that I got last night, that they're not coming, or I should say the ones that are arriving are not here for the same purpose as maybe some that are already here. In other words, there's more than one, and it feels like one sector is saying, you know, too many other things rely on the universe, on the earth's participation in the universe, and so therefore we cannot let its destruction happen because it affects other timelines, it affects other galaxies, it affects other outcomes. So they will come and want to rid the earth of the plague, or at least enlighten. If they can't, you know, they probably want to enlighten, but if it won't be enlightened, then they got to rid the plague, which would be humanity, right? Then you have other series of things that want this structure because of a structure of enslavement. Do you follow what the fuck I'm saying? You got the right stuff, baby, right? And so the Schumann resonance, I really feel, was a message. Okay? And I feel like we may be getting more about these downloads in the near future. I feel like Spirit is setting up, like I said, the foundation for us to start putting the pieces together. Okay, the next thing was the main release. Okay? The main release. And I feel like there's something more information. So they want to kind of have us see things in a particular way, and this discernment and the being desensitized, so that way we will have a particular reaction before the news dump, like the full news dump, like when we're actually seeing shit, right? And I gotta say to you, and I said to him, you know, there's gonna be a segment of society that's gonna be in the street, like beam me up, Scotty. Earth is ghetto. I want to go. They're gonna be out there. Excuse me. They're gonna be out there trying to put their Star Trek suits on, like it's a Star Trek convention. Okay, and then you're gonna have the doomsday preppers who are gonna be like, the world, you know, the world is ending. Okay. So I feel like that's why we're seeing this flood of information coming out to try to kind of like diffuse what they suspect will be both reactions. Okay? Start working on your herbal intake, or trying to learn. And I've been saying this to you guys as much as possible. because we need to return to that, okay? This is so, so like important to self-correction. Spirit saying self-correction. Okay, I have one more download, and this one may be a research project for all of us. Okay, this morning, because that all came last night. This morning, when I woke up and looked at all of the downloads that came last night, I heard in my head Reagan in 1982. Now, I was alive then, okay? But I couldn't think of anything major that happened in that year, but I was young, right? So first thing I did was I added up the numbers. 1982 came out to 1010, which is completion for me. And I kept telling you that we've done some, we're completing a cycle, right? Now, what I didn't do was look up astrologically what was happening that year. But I want to say this. It feels to me like when Reagan came in, this was a completion of a separate cycle that had to do with some type of preparation for the Aquarius. Okay? For the age of Aquarius. Remember that in the 60s, 1982. Okay? Remember that in the 60s, everybody was, talking about the age of Aquarius, right? And there was a lot of movement forward in the civil rights all the way, and then when Reagan came in, he put a fucking end to that. The Voting Rights Act. There's a lot of shit that he did that year. Okay? The one thing that I found, though, that really stuck out to me, and we're going to continue, okay, was that he also started the war on drugs in 1982. Okay? Now, before I forget, what Spirit was saying was that a cycle ended when he came into office, which was in 81. And he was laying the groundwork for something that's been completed now. Trump is an effect of that in a sense, because he's like the backlash. Okay, I didn't really fully get that, but like the programming, okay, that it started from there. So something to do with the technology that they found, or the aliens or something, has something to do with a program that he initiated that also has to do with why they changed, like the war on drugs, why they did the Voting Rights Act, a lot of the things that he did, Spirit said it was a three-pronger. Okay, a three-pronger to lay the foundation. And he was the one who made the announcement of the New World Order. And I feel like it's heavily connected to what that man was saying when he said, because they also asked the guy, the whistleblower, they said, who else knows about this above, the top secret? Is there a separate thing? And he was like, not really, And the guy was like, well, is everybody that's in this, in the know of this project, are they solely government agencies? And he said, no. He said, some are government, some are not. So the guy kind of like tried to press him, like, what do you mean that they're not? And he was like, well, that's the part I can't discuss. He actually mentioned his wife at that point. Like it's caused them drama, whatever, right? So you have to go and use your own discernment and go back and listen. But basically, the takeaway was there was only but so much information that he could share, even in the capacity of a whistleblower. Meaning that there are outside entities. And I feel like those outside entities have to do with that New World Order. Okay? All right? So let me see if there was anything else there. There's something, the three, he was chosen to lay a foundation. And what this guy was exposing somehow ties into that. That I don't fully have yet. Now, I wanted to do Q&A back to back today, but somebody booked for this afternoon, so I can't channel for that long. I would end up having my headache back. So why don't we do that Sunday morning? Okay. You guys have any quick questions in reference to the channeled messages today? Because then I need like a little lunch break before I have to go into a session. Let me put this up here. Thoughts, conversations. Remember to sign up. Oh, yes. Remember to sign up for the Lionsgate if you want to participate. It's always a really excellent portal to take part in. No, just very interesting discussion. Yes, especially about the herbs. It's imperative, guys, because we're going to be detoxing. Okay, there's a major detox that's coming. And this nonsense about the vaccines, forget about that, okay? No weapon formed against you shall prosper. And I don't care what other people are telling you. I'm telling you that if you get on your herb journey, none of that shit matters. Start listening to the frequency. Start decalcifying your third eye. I gave you guys some book recommendations. I think I still have them here. Okay, Green Witch. Okay, although it may not be like an ATR book, it has a lot of information on herbs, flowers, oils, and more. Okay, botanical magic. Okay, Black Horns is also here. Okay, this has a lot of about usages. Okay, and then I use this one. Okay, it's really about, you know, alternatives. Okay, but what I do is I kind of cross reference. This is really a medical book. I cross reference what herbs maybe can target things, and then I might look in another book that will go into multiple uses, because remember, each of these herbs, don't just think that one herb is for one thing. Usually there are many uses. Okay, let me see. I have heard talk about herbs from very talented mediums such as yourself and two others especially. It's really important right now. Okay, this is about, you can clean up everything. Okay, don't be fooled. I'm not saying don't take your medications. Okay, if you have, you know, a medication that is important to you, to your health, continue to take your medication, but start researching. Okay, because even like my mom, like, you know, once your numbers start lowering, you're starting to reverse certain things. Okay, all right. So that's basically what I wanted to cover today. I do have to prepare for another meeting. We will reconvene on Sunday. I may take pieces of this, or, you know, I'll figure out how I'm gonna do that. But we'll convene on Sunday. I'll send out an exact time. And I'm wishing you all, a fabulous weekend, okay? Plus, I'm having a whole allergy attack, so I need to get my life together. All right, guys. So, I just want to say thank you for spending some time, with me, and I'm wishing you all light and love, okay? And blessings on blessings. Bye, guys.